I'm Bob Balfans from the Everyone Graduate Center at Johns Hopkins University, and I want to welcome you to our second Cross-State High School Redesign Collaborative Solutions Forum on supporting students during COVID. Today we're going to have a very rich discussion and sharing and learning together on how we're figuring out ways to teach our students remotely during this challenging period of time. Before we dive in, I just want to say from myself and from the larger JHU EGC team, we know this has been a challenging time for everybody, and we know in particular a number of our schools, redesign schools, are in communities that have been particularly hard hit, either before or currently by COVID, and we just want you to know that our collective spirit and thoughts are with you. And today we're going to figure out ways to make it work for everybody together. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our EGC team of Maria, Hannah, and Linda, who are going to be our guides today.
Ooh, Linda, you're muted still.
Wow, that was my best work too. Sorry, everybody. This is Linda, in case you don't have a camera. And I'm just going to quickly go through today's agenda. We are going to find out who's in the room with a quick hello that Hannah will lead us through. And then we're going to have two focused discussions. One is on fostering a sense of belonging and keeping things interactive. The next one is going to be on formative assessment, evidence of learning, and checking in. And then we're going to come back to Bob for some updates from our last learnings, and then a synthesis and closing. So it should be an exciting hour. I think yes. So in the spirit of the spirit Bob shared, we thought it would be nice to start with this acronym for HOPE, hearing other people's experiences. It truly is in the opportunity to hear other people's voices and other people's experience where we find the fuel and the courage and the knowledge and the wisdom to do our best for each other and for students. Maria?
With that in mind, we are suggesting and we're hoping to hear from as many people as possible. So we have muted you upon entry, but we are sharing two ways of for you to share ideas and ask questions. The one would be raising the hand function, which you will find at the bottom of the participant list, or by entering your ideas in the chat function. We will proceed to read each question or comment aloud and proceed to ask for ideas and thoughts. Use the raise hand to let us know when you're ready to share, or simply type your response in the chat function. When you are referencing a resource that can be accessed via a web link, please share the link in the chat box. After the call, we will send out a follow-up email listing the resources shared during our session. Welcome, everybody.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Hannah Peria, and I work for Johns Hopkins as well. I'm located here in Albuquerque. We're going to do some fun introductions now, virtually, at least asking everybody who does have their camera turned on to share with the rest of the group and say hello. You can share your name, your role, and who you work for and where you're located, and then one word that describes how you are feeling. I'm going to go through my list in the order that you appear on my screen, and I'll call on people. And so if you could just unmute yourself, say hello, and share that information and your one word, and then we'll go on to the next person. And if you are joining us and you don't have your video on or don't have a video, you can feel free to enter that information in the chat. Probably not a surprise to anyone who knows me, my one word would be caffeinated. And I will, the first person that I see after our EGC team that's already spoken is Laura from New York. Would you say hello, Laura?
Hi, everybody. It's Laura Tedesco from New York, and I'm feeling motivated.
Awesome. Thank you. Felicia.
Hi, Felicia Walker from Talent Development Secondary, and I'm feeling excited.
Kevin Eberly.
Hi, Kevin Eberly from Buffalo, New York, MST. I feel encouraged. There are some amazing stories going out, especially in the urban setting, that are really amazing as far as our teachers really coming to the forefront. Really amazing stories.
Thanks, Kevin. Michael Turner.
Mike from Central Office, Cincinnati Public Schools, and somebody already used the word, but that was what was popped into my head, was motivated.
Great, thank you, Mike. Tara.
Hi, I'm Tara Madden from Talent Development Secondary. Since Felicia stole my word because we're both excited, I'll be happy.
Great, thank you, Tara. Eli.
Hi, Eli Pursuit, live in Seattle, work at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Feeling kind of gathered today.
Thanks. Next, Nate.
Hey, my name's Nate Pierantoni. I work in Farmington, New Mexico. I'm a director, and I'm feeling confident today.
Thanks, Nate. Next up, Kaz Martinez.
Hi, Hannah. Good to see you again. Kaz from Las Montañas in New Mexico. And honestly, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now, but that's okay. I'll get better soon.
Thanks, Kaz. Anthony?
Well, good afternoon. My name is Anthony Rodrigue, the Louisiana Virtual Charter Academy. And if I had to pick one word, it would be fidgety.
I feel that. I feel that. Next up, Sanja.
Good morning, I'm Sanja from Mississippi. I work at the State Department of Education in the Office of School Improvement, and I'm feeling anxious.
Thanks for sharing, Sanja. Another state leader, Kimberly.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Bell from Ohio. I am feeling ready, just for whatever.
Nice. Next up, Kurt.
Good afternoon. I'm also feeling inspired. I had the opportunity to participate in a webinar with some New York principals talking about how they're dealing with social emotional learning despite what's going on around them, and it's still engaging students in this distance platform. So I'm feeling inspired.
Thank you, Kurt. Next up, Korth.
Hi, I'm Korth Ellsworth from Farmington, New Mexico, a curriculum director, and at the moment I'm feeling really busy.
Fair. And then the last video I see right now, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, is Lene.
Very close. It's Lene. This is AK Lene from JCFA Non-Traditional Charter Schools in Louisiana, and I'm feeling curious.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. And if you didn't share with your video on, feel free to enter a hello and your word in the chat. And I'll turn things back over to Linda.
Thank you, Hannah. I think we're ready to move forward, Amanda. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So the first dialogue we're going to have is about fostering a sense of belonging and connection during our remote learning. And as you see, that's what we're trying to do as well, striking a balance between knowing everybody is so busy and taking the opportunity to really try to be sure we're making some connections. Next slide. So we're going to follow the format we followed last time. So we'll start with what we know. We want you to be aware that the link is on the slide, and it also will be provided in a follow-up email. But the first two pieces of information we're going to talk about are big learnings from the science of learning. Next. So the first thing we're going to talk about is that learning is social. And you know, some folks, myself included, could learn really well in a library just with a stack of books. But the majority of people really need a social environment to maximize their learning opportunities. And research has found that from infancy on, what we do is learn better when we have social cues that help us to recall or emulate what we hear from another person. So aside from just those social cues, socialization all the way around has some benefits. Peer collaboration, which gives students access to a diverse array of experiences, and it requires us to engage with all of the senses of our body. And that in turn creates activation in our brain, and it into account. So actually, group work capitalizes on many strengths that we may not even be aware of. Next slide, Amanda. So the next thing we want to take from the learning sciences is just a little bit of information about what do emotions, what role do they play in our ability to learn? So when we take in information and what we're able to process from it, it isn't just based on our IQ. And what we have become more and more aware of in the past decades is that how we feel, our overall emotional being, just as Hannah started with, how are you feeling? What's one word that describes your emotional state? Has a huge impact on how well we will be able to take in new information and learn. Educational settings where students feel stressed, shamed, or uncomfortable, or anxious, as in times as we're experiencing right now, actually make it more difficult to learn. And because it makes it more difficult to learn, this increases that anxiousness or those negative emotions, and it actually sparks a cycle that feeds itself. And it's a vicious cycle, and it leaves some students really reluctant to attend to what's being presented. So why is that? Well, research is teaching us that that limbic system part of our brain has the ability to be open or to shut off access to learning and access to memory. And so when we're under stress or anxiety, our brain actually blocks access to our higher cognitive processing functions. So this idea of creating a sense of belonging and connection, whether it be in the classroom environment or through remote learning, really has succinct implications, and that's what we're going to focus on now. Next slide, Amanda. So we're going to do a poll, and the poll we're going to start with is, what is your sense of the state of belonging and connection within your remote learning community now? And we know some of you have roles at the district, so your remote learning community might be the adults you're interacting with, but whatever your remote learning community is, what's your sense? And we have the polls coming in. We're at 12 participants. We can give a little longer. About half of us have voted now. Just a few more seconds. We have about 65% of us have voted, and we're kind of evenly split between in places with practices to share with others and developing. Can we share the poll results, Amanda? Are we doing that now? We probably are. And then we do have a couple people that are looking for places to start. So just as in every learning situation, this is really going to be a differentiated dialogue. I'm going to go to our conversation now. So can we, Amanda, go to the next slide? I think we, I think we might be frozen. Amanda, are we able to close the poll?
Yes, I've closed it. It might still be up on your screen.
It is. It's just I'm delayed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to start our focused. It says discussion, but it's really going to be a dialogue, right? Because discussion means we're going to come to a dramatic conclusion and decision. And I think this is going to be more of an opportunity to share some ideas and thinking. So we'll call it a focused dialogue. What's working with keeping things interactive with students? And do you have practices in place that are helping students feel like they belong in this new remote learning environment? Now, again, if you would like to share, you can raise your hand. It's on the bottom of the participant list, and Maria's going to see your hand and call on you. Or you can type in the chat, and Maria's going to share with us what's in the chat. Anyone who has something that is working with keeping things interactive.
Okay, we have, is it Kevin? I cannot see the name.
Actually,
Kevin?
it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
588, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was saying that, especially being in a redesign right now in New York, in Buffalo, I've been saying this for years. This is my almost 30th year in administration. It's all about empowerment and relationship building with your staff. You know, so it really is coming down to the empowerment of the staff to actually trickle down to the students themselves for that trust building. And we've been working on that the last 2 years alone in this East Side school in Buffalo. And that's one of the critical pieces, definitely the relationship building and, you know, looking at a commonality for all of them to work together towards a common goal for the students. It's critical. I don't know if that came across.
Yes, thanks. Very good. Very insightful.
Angeline Broussard shares with everyone, I am communicating with my students through Google Classroom and parental contact via phone calls.
Thank you. And we also have one ahead of that from Anthony. Being at a virtual school, I feel as if we had a head start on most of the state already. We had a platform in place for classes and had to adjust for the social aspect. We have implemented virtual hangouts for our students where they can come weekly to a gathering with a teacher moderator to interact and chat with their peers. Thank you, Anthony. Other things that might be working.
And what might have worked better than you thought or worse than you thought?
So from Tara at TDS, she shares, as a parent, my child's school has a YouTube channel populated with instructional videos from different teachers. We visit often. And then there's another one. No, that's it.
I think there's one from Nate too, Maria.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to it, and another one just came in. We had a platform in place for classes and had to adjust for the social aspect. We have implemented virtual hangouts for our students where they can come weekly to a gathering with a teacher moderator to interact and chat with their peers.
We also have from Nate, who says, across our district, we have seen teachers invite students to join virtual parties, share personal anecdotes, show off and write about their interest. Lots of evidence that our continuous learning plan goes deeper than pure academics. Teachers took the lead on this with many personal demonstrations, videos, even community distance parades, which speaks to just the core idea of finding ways to keep that connection going and establishing the connection and sort of for the adults to share part of themselves, to enable the kids to share parts of themselves to keep that connection going.
When we met last time, I know Peter Desmond from Rocinante had shared how they were doing a spotlight on each of their seniors, and it was one of their strategies also for seniors that they hadn't been able to connect with, kind of was like role reversal, so those seniors would connect with them. And I happen to be Facebook follower with their school, and actually got to see one of their senior spotlights and the buzz and connection that generated. Anything else you'd like to share? Could be something, doesn't have to be anything big, just something like Bob said, maybe something that you tried and it worked out better than you thought, or you tried and there was no response and it fell flat.
So this is Sandra. While I have not seen anything that I can directly speak to, given that I work at the state, just engaging with superintendent friends or colleagues through the social media platforms. I've seen a lot of community being built and being received well as it relates to senior spotlights, decorating the community and around the school colors for seniors, and doing drive-bys or drive-throughs and broadcasting that, and then posting it to the web page or to the social media platform. So some of the things that I've seen speak to what you just talked about, Linda, as it relates to celebrating and finding ways to spotlight seniors since their graduation prospects have been so severely impacted with regard to COVID. Most of our seniors are supposed to be graduating during the first couple of weeks in May. By the third week in May, we've had graduation ceremonies across the state. And so now, just because of the decision making that they're having, I think that, that has been received well, that we're actually being acknowledged, and people are recognizing what a huge hit this is to us for our class. Not only with just recognizing seniors, I saw something on the news this morning with regard to like a virtual prom or those kinds of things that seem to be being received well. I know that's not purely academic, but when we talk about community, I think those things have a place.
And please, thank you, Sandra. And please, we really are encouraging, this definitely does not have to be academically centered. I can see there's a few in the chat. I'm going to turn to Maria, but I saw one this morning also on Facebook where the leadership team had put giant pictures of each senior down the driveway. Driving by and seeing them, but it was pretty amazing. Maria, do we have some chats?
Tara, TDS, shares small group sessions. Oops, hold on. Small group sessions for 30 minutes. We work on what students, sorry, there's another message there that's covering it up. We work on what the student or parent requests help with, allowing kids to share their work and they have been well received. We also have Felicia Walker sharing schools that I'm supporting do scavenger hunts to get students engaged and interacting at the beginning of their lessons. Like go grab a toothbrush, and students who participate get participation points. Kids love it. And then Tara says, amen to scavenger hunts. And let's see if we have anything else, I think. Yes, from Anthony Rodriguez. Yep, we're planning a virtual prom. Had a virtual ring ceremony for rising seniors, and we'll have a virtual graduation. And then Melissa Joseph, we have 2 Zoom faculty meetings weekly. So we as staff can be on the same page. We have weekly Zoom meetings with each grade level. Being able to see each other and our students is helping to keep our sense of connectedness.
Thank you, Maria. Maybe we'll go to our next piece, And just know you can continue to put things in the chat or raise your hand. We're going to talk just a little bit about formative assessment, how folks are getting any evidence of learning, and check-ins. So the next slide just about, we're just really looking at what allows teachers and students to provide feedback and adjust teaching and learning for each other. So we're going to have a discussion now just to talk about, in that arena, the idea of that this is mutual, that teachers and students provide feedback that allows for adjustment. And that adjustment might not just be about content again. It might be about method, means, again, just the whole idea of about what you are finding to be of value in that arena. It may just be frozen on my screen, but I'm still on the definition. Is it just me? There it is. So again, just sharing what ways you are finding that is working for giving and receiving ongoing feedback. And again, that does not necessarily have to be about academic content.
I wonder if I can volunteer Laura to share a little bit, because I know that we've been talking to one school in particular, but also multiple schools in New York about surveying their students and getting feedback in that manner. So sorry to volunteer you, Laura, but if you'd be so kind.
Hi, yeah, I'm happy to speak about that. So we have a couple of schools actually in New York City and in upstate New York that are thinking about kind of capturing the perceptions and the sentiments of what's happening right now with staff and with students and with parents, so they can kind of find out what's working, what's not, and if there's anything sort of new that they can tap into that they could capitalize on in the future. I don't know if that helps or not. Anything else I should add, Hannah?
No, that's great. I mean, and they're even asking to, like, similar to what we did before, how are you feeling right now? So it can be, you know, broad and garnering information about students' lives. So yeah, thanks, Laura. Cool.
Yeah. And I'll actually just add that they've found that there are some students that are taking really well to the remote learning format that weren't experiencing success before, and it's really particularly important to gather the thoughts of those students.
So Nate shared that they had given a survey to all staff and is asking them to identify which platforms they are having most success with, challenges, and sorry, just cut it off and I don't.
Here, I'll keep reading that one for you,
ahead.
Maria. The challenges, hurdles, and rates of engagement. Our expectation is for teachers to provide academic feedback to students, but since we are not grading work, it ends with feedback. We have not yet offered perception surveys for students/families.
Thank you. And then Tara shares individual weekly calls with teachers allows for feedback, even more so than in a traditional classroom because we rarely have time for weekly one-on-one conversations with each student.
We have one example to share. Bob and I have the opportunity to work with mostly folks who are practicing in some role as educational leaders in the EDD program at Johns Hopkins. And one of the applied learning assignments is about making a prototype. And one of our principals asked if they could deviate from what they're doing for their dissertation and actually create a prototype that was relevant to what is happening with COVID-19. So we thought it might be nice to just share with you. And also, we're also going to share her email if you have questions or you would actually want the actual links. This is high school English. Can we go to the next slide, Amanda? So her name is Christine Cheeseman, and she is a principal in Anne Arundel County. And we're going to go to the next one. So one of the things that she knew from empathy maps with students was just how essential it was going to be to create something where there was voice and choice, but also create something where folks could work at their own pace. And so what she started with, as you can see, is a menu, and you were able to select one box in each row. So you actually had multiple modalities, and then there's 3 levels of depth of knowledge as you go down the table. We're going to show you just a couple, like I said, if you have interest, Christine's happy to share and she's happy to hear from you, but please know this isn't really so much about the example as it is just showing what a process might look like. So she used a variety of formats. We've heard both ways. We've heard from people that said a variety of formats is really wonderful and preferable, and we've heard from people that said a variety of formats is more challenging. We're going to go to the next slide, Amanda. But each of these next follow-up slides are just what you would see. If you clicked in the choice menu, then this is where you would be taken, where you're going to get directions for what your assignment is going to be. And these are all specific to a 10th grade novel. And we're going to go through these pretty quickly, Amanda. This is just, she used a variety of platform. This one is Kahoot, which most people are kind of familiar with. The next one was Draw a Map. And next one, Genially. Just again, so it would be novel, and so that you would be able to go through and pick and choose. And I think there's one more. That was Creating a Timeline on Padlet. So again, just sharing this to share what something might look like that would allow asynchronous learning for large parts of the learning experience and provide some variety. And oh, I was wrong. This might be the last one, the mind map. And again, we'll put Christine's email in the chat, and also, Powtoon as well. Yeah, so she really tried to showcase a variety of different platforms, because she also hopes as principal to share this with teachers and for the teachers to be exposed to a variety of platforms and decide which ones they may find of value. And this one is Spotify for those who like a little bit of theater. And so we have some comments in the chat, I think,
yes,
about
you. So Michael Turner said this is very nice. And Michelle says, I like the process on the screen right now. Can she send a copy of the lesson to you for distribution?
So we'll be sharing the PowerPoint, and we'll also be sharing her email. But when you get the PowerPoint, you'll see, I think everything is linked. So I think you might have to email her to get one that has the active links, but she's happy to share. Did we get all the chat, Maria?
Yes, we did.
Wonderful.
Hannah's double checking to make sure I didn't miss any.
It's hard. I know I was the chat person last time. It looks like an easy job, but it is not. It jumps all over the place.
Actually, Tara helped me by sending me a message saying expand your chat box, which helped. Thank you, Tara.
Okay, so we just also wanted to follow up with that formative assessment piece about, you know, what's working and what's not working, with the idea of teachers and leaders. What might be working that you might want to share in terms of collaboration remotely, and what might be of value or of service that would help to support enhanced collaboration. So we kind of shifted a little bit from the kind of classroom lens now to the adult learner lens.
And also, what have folks been thinking about how to balance like teachers' time, right? There's a lot of demands being placed on them between supporting students, delivering lessons, learning how to use the new technologies. Have folks had any thoughts or experiences, some of the principals or other leaders on the phone, about how you're working to create some sort of livable balance for teachers amongst all these competing demands?
Tara shared, we have had interest from schools to provide some self-care and secondary trauma virtually at this time. Anthony says, we have weekly PLC meetings with staff where they divide by grade level and content to discuss data and strategies. Kaz Martinez shared, having a small staff, 20 adults, has helped tremendously. If larger, maybe break the collaboration up in smaller groups.
And so this is Sandra. We had a conversation actually this morning in one of my team meetings with upper level leadership. And we're looking at the information that we've pushed out, all of the resources that we've collected from the various groups or organizations that are providing support, and really trying to look at how we can catalog that in such a way that it's focusing on this big theme that then has ways that the user can go deeper for their specific need. And so right now, that's kind of what we're looking at. How can we take the resources we've provided to our districts and our schools and make that more user-friendly, that's focused in on a specific need, rather than them having this overarching list of, or overwhelming list of resources.
We also have a follow-up from Anthony Rodriguez, and he says, our teachers are teaching one session a day instead of multiple sessions, but do offer several small group sessions for those who are struggling. Michelle shared, my company is working on connecting with educators who are doing this extremely well and contracting with them to create PD for other teachers this summer. If you know anyone who's a rock star at this, message me.
And then we also got a message from Kevin from Buffalo, who shared that they are seeing teachers collaborating together, where each teacher showcases their best practices because they all have different skill sets. All right, I think we're going to go to the next slide, Amanda. So in the follow-up email, we're also going to provide another useful resource that came across Bob's desk that looked really promising. And this may be something for the future. We don't know how long we'll be remote, or this may be something for the future. We've talked with some school teams who see that there may be some benefits of piloting some things remote, even after this landscape has changed. And this particular tool is a planning tool for students. It has several pages. We just did a screenshot here, but actually takes a design process for how to create a virtual portfolio defense. And it's a planning guide for students. And then there's also a companion guide for teachers. And so we'll be including that in the after email. And this comes to us from our friends at Envision Learning. Next slide, Amanda.
Okay.
Time for Bob.
Right. So we just wanted to provide a couple of updates from our last discussion we had, which was on supporting seniors during COVID. Since then, a couple of good resources have come across that we wanted to share. The first one is from the National College Attainment Network, which is sort of has the immediate next steps for seniors this year in their transitions, and has sort of a nice sort of 5-step process with guidelines. And then next slide. And then another one that I found very informative comes from a group that's made up of actually former Obama administration health officials and school preparedness officials, and trying to get guidance to districts on how to build a roadmap, and states also, roadmap to reopening. And they have different categories, but I found almost their strongest category to be post-secondary, which again is for this year talking about seniors, but for next year talking about sophomores and juniors and what needs to be done to keep them, to re-engage them and bring them back and keep them on track. Has a very nice set of detailed guidance and sort of ways to track their recommendations. They do make one very bold recommendation for this year for seniors, which their recommendation is to basically at this point stop instruction and just focus on advising. You take that for what it's worth, but that would be their recommendation for right now. All right, and with that, we'd like to then open it up to people on thoughts on what other topics would be useful for this forum. I have one I want to share, but first I'm going to open the floor for other folks to share. What else? We've looked at supporting seniors. We've looked at teaching and learning remotely today and a little bit of teacher professional development. Are there other burning questions that you have right now that you'd love to be able to have a facilitated discussion with fellow Redesign school teams on? If so, share or send an email after.
Bob, Michelle has sent a follow-up. She says Strata just released a survey on work and education COVID-19. Very interesting. Looking at changing view of university versus trade school right now, and she is sending us the link to that.
Wonderful.
Kevin is sharing, have to look at the summer transition with instruction and reboot. And Tara, how to reopen a brick and mortar campus in a welcoming way that may need to include some masks, some face masks.
Okay. Thanks. All right, well, if other ideas come with you, please send them in. And working off of some of the suggestions we heard, the one that I know for sure we're going to hold in a couple weeks is one that's going to look at how to sort of use, or repurpose is the wrong word, but adjust early warning and multi-tiered student support systems to support opening strong after COVID. And to think about what are some preventative universal strategies we know will help reestablish school connectedness, engagement, and well-being, and also how to use that methodology to be able to figure out who needs targeted supports of what type, who might need intensive supports. Because what we know, just to foreshadow it briefly for a moment, is that, well, we can have a sense of the range of challenges our students have felt, and we may know from our ongoing dialogue and more specifics for our given school. It's still going to be the case that what students' needs are when they come back, there's going to be a fair amount of variety from place to place and school to school. And we also know from the science of this, of things like resilience and so forth, that it's a combination of where a student was and what they experienced. And that's a very interactive thing, which then produces what their current needs are. And so that's why I think that many of our schools and many of our districts and states have invested a lot of work in early warning systems and multi-tiered student supports. And I think there's some pretty creative ways we can put our heads together to say, how can those be adjusted to really help us get rapid feedback on what our kids' needs are, and then organize responses in a strategic way that lets us have sort of a tiered response that's localized to our situation. So that's one big coming attraction, but we have room for another if as ideas and needs and desires emerge from our collaborative network. All right, we got.
Tara had a follow up and says connecting with families and thinking of that 8th to high school transition.
Yeah.
Highlighting that. And Sanja said, that's wonderful. And Michelle, our schools, Michelle shares, our schools and districts reaching out to families that are now unemployed or underemployed. They need free reduced lunch forms, benefit family, and also can help district access greater funds next year.
Very smart point. Yeah, build up the demonstrated need to get the resources that are required. Does anybody have a closing thought or idea to share? Just a learning that maybe wasn't one of our topics, but was still top of mind, that something has recently occurred that you learned or you've seen that fits in the larger category of responding to COVID or just supporting our kids in general.
Kevin has a thought. He's sharing that we need to start looking at what a hybrid school will look like. Students on campus and off campus.
Indeed. All right, I think we can go to our concluding slide. So as always, please send your follow-up ideas and thoughts. We will send out a recording of the session, a copy of the slides, as we've done before, sort of a reformatted chat section, and as well as the references and materials that were shared today. We'll send you a notice that that's out, sir, that is out, but you can always also find them on our high school redesign .org page, as well as a growing list of additional COVID and in general resources to support high schools and even middle schools taking on these challenges. And again, we want to really thank you for your participation. It was another great sharing across our network of ideas and successes and challenges and ways that we're collaborating. And as many people noted, really folks are, the human spirit is shining through, and folks are really coming up with creative and passionate and powerful ways to work together, to support each other and to support our kids. And so we want to thank you for that. And as always, we want to end with onwards. And it has been a pleasure spending this afternoon with you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.